Imagine scrolling through TikTok and stumbling upon a 6-second video that leaves you stunned. A shaky phone camera pans across a suburban street in Perth. What you see is not a music festival queue, not a Black Friday sale, but dozens of Australians lined up for a rental inspection. Over 92 people, all vying for a single property. Within hours, the video went viral, racking up millions of views, sparking outrage, and igniting a conversation that has been simmering in Australia for years, the housing and rental affordability crisis. This wasn't just another internet clip. It was a mirror held up to the nation, exposing the stark reality that finding a place to live has become one of the hardest challenges for ordinary Australians. How did we get here? Australia has long prided itself on being a land of opportunity, where home ownership symbolized stability and prosperity. But in 2025, that dream feels increasingly out of reach. Let's unpack how we arrived at this crisis: population growth versus supply shortage. Australia's population has grown rapidly due to immigration and natural increase, especially in capital cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth. Yet, housing construction has not kept pace. Planning delays, high construction costs, and labor shortages have slowed supply. Rental market pressures. Over the last decade, rents in Australia's capital cities have surged by 57%, with Perth experiencing a staggering 63% increase. Vacancy rates have hit historic lows, hovering below 1% in major cities. Decline in social housing. Social housing stock has dwindled, now representing only 4.1% of Australia's housing supply, compared to 6% in the early 1990s. Waiting lists stretch for years, leaving vulnerable groups with few options. Economic pressures. High interest rates and inflation have pushed more would-be buyers into the rental market, creating even fiercer competition for limited homes. The viral moment. Why this video hit a nerve. The Perth video wasn't the first time Australians had seen crowds at inspections, but its brevity and starkness gave it unique power. In just 6 seconds, the crisis became undeniable. It resonated with young renters who are priced out of the market. It angered older generations who see their children struggling. It caught the attention of policymakers who could no longer dismiss the crisis as anecdotal. Social media turned what was once a local rental issue into a national emergency, trending on every platform. Suddenly, Australians across the country recognized their own experiences in that viral clip. Human stories behind the numbers. Behind the statistics are real people facing heartbreaking struggles, students skipping meals to afford rising rent near universities, families moving every 6 to 12 months because landlords keep selling properties, single parents forced into long commutes because they can't secure affordable rentals near work, older Australians dipping into retirement savings just to stay housed. The line outside the Perth property wasn't just about competition, it was about desperation. Every person in that queue had their own story of sacrifice and struggle. Government responses. Too little, too late? Australian governments at both state and federal levels have made promises, but renters say the crisis is only worsening. Federal initiatives. The government has pledged billions in low-interest loans for new housing projects and is attempting to accelerate construction. Yet many argue these measures will take years before renters feel relief. State-level action. Some states have introduced rent caps or temporary freezes, but landlords and property lobbies push back, arguing this could reduce investment in the rental sector. Calls for reform. Experts demand a massive investment in social and affordable housing, stronger tenant protections, and policies to balance investor incentives with renter needs. The viral video has placed additional pressure on politicians, who now face a wave of public anger impossible to ignore. The bigger picture. Why Australia's crisis matters. Globally, Australia's rental emergency is not isolated. Similar crises are unfolding worldwide, from Canada's overheated markets to London's unaffordable rentals. What happens in Australia is part of a broader trend. urban centers attracting more people than they can house, investors outpacing first-time buyers, policy lagging behind demographic and economic shifts. The Perth video is a microcosm of a global housing affordability challenge, one that raises urgent questions about how societies prioritize housing as a basic right versus a financial asset. Possible solutions. Experts and advocacy groups suggest several strategies that could help Australia escape this housing trap. Boost social housing. Major reinvestment in public housing stock to provide long-term affordability for vulnerable groups. Encourage build-to-rent models. Institutional players creating large-scale rental housing could stabilize supply, but regulation is needed to prevent exploitation. Reform tax incentives. Review negative gearing and capital gains tax concessions that currently favor investors over renters. Faster planning approvals. Streamline the bureaucratic process for new housing developments to increase supply faster. Rent stabilization. Temporary rent caps or stronger rent control measures to prevent extreme price surges. Regional development incentives. Encouraging population growth in regional areas with better infrastructure and job opportunities to ease pressure on major cities. Why this story isn't going away. Housing is more than just a financial asset. It's the foundation of security, dignity, and community. The viral video crystallized years of frustration into a moment that could spark lasting change. It forced Australians, policymakers, and the global audience to ask, what kind of society do we become if housing is treated only as a commodity, not a human right? The 6-second Perth video has already started a national conversation. But conversation alone won't fix the crisis. It requires sustained attention, activism, and political will. So here's the question for you. What do you think is the single most urgent step Australia should take to fix its rental crisis? Should the government invest heavily in social housing? Should rent caps be introduced nationwide? Or should the tax system be restructured to rebalance the market? Drop your thoughts below, because the only way forward is if Australians themselves shape the solutions. And remember, every share, every comment, and every voice adds pressure for change.